Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to Honors Math class for today. Woo! Yay! Goat, 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 goat. It's really weird talking to nobody. Nobody to laugh at my jokes. I might start crying right in the middle of this. Don't get too excited. Alright? If you haven't seen so already, if you go to page 18 in your packet, you can do today's entrance task. So write this down on page 18. You're going to graph the solution. And it's a little bit of a tricky one. 2/3 x minus 5. Now, I have not done a table for this. I'm going to pause it and then let you guys figure out how we're going to try to graph it. And then I'm going to go over the answer of what the exact graph would look like. So go ahead and pause it, try it. Alright, and we're back. Hopefully you really did pause it. I'm going to go over the answer. Never did do a table, but it's going to lead into what I'm going to show you today on the easier way to graph these. So it should look something like this. And there's my arrows and my label. I know what you're asking yourself right now. Wow, Mr. Hardenstein did that fast. He really is the GOAT. He must be some kind of an alpha genius or a sorcerer or a, I don't know, class 4 ninja wizard. You never know what it could be. But the reality is, I just used the trick that I'm going to teach you guys today on how to do that quick. Now, if you were using a table to do this, it would have worked best, obviously, if you picked x values like -3, 0, 3, and 6, counting by the denominator of the fraction on the x term, because that gives you integer values for y, and those are the easiest points to plot. We talked about that a little bit way back in Unit 8, and that gives you your -7, your -5, -3, and -1 for your points in your table if you were trying to do it that way. Alright, I already posted the answers in a separate image of the work you were supposed to try yesterday on page 5, so hopefully you already checked that. If not, pause it, go back to the Google Classroom page and check your answers from page 5. But we're going to move on to page 6 today for today's notes. Notes. Yay. Hopefully you guys already said it. Alright, so moving to the notes on page 6, which is already there. So I'm going to use that notes page that you guys already have, and I'm just kind of going to go through it step by step as we go here. So here is kind of, I guess I'll do it like this. So over here, it said last year because this was a Unit 8 packet. We're in 8th grade packet. So back in Unit 8, fumbled my pen. Unit 8 in 7th grade math, we did all this whole unit on y equals kx, and we learned that these were straight lines that went through the origin, okay, which by the way is 0 on the y-axis. Alright, now we have, for this year, what's going to be called linear equations that are going to be these equations in the form of y equals mx plus b, and we're going to talk about what this m and this b really means, okay. The easier one to consider is b is what they call the y-intercept. That's the actual math term for it. In other words, it's where our graph crosses the y-axis. Okay, so that's going to be what this b value is. All right, and I always remember that when I'm going to actually make my graph, I begin b at the b point, the y-intercept. So that's one of the ways I remember it. Wow, Mr. Hardenstein, you really are the GOAT. Goat. So we'll start with that. Now, by the way, if I cover up this plus b here, you can see that y equals kx and y equal mx looks almost exactly the same. And since this b value is the y-intercept, and on these ones they always went through 0 on the y-axis, the origin, that's why this is, basically you could think of it as having a plus 0 on the end of all of these ones here. And we just didn't add anything or subtract anything on the end of this back in Unit 8. Now we're just going to be adding or subtracting a number on the end. And what that's really going to be doing is it's going to shift a line up or down on the y-axis from before. And now m we no longer can think of as the unit rate. So what is m? I'm sure that's what you're all wondering. Well, you kind of already know because you have the notes in front of you. M is what we refer to as the slope. That's the short answer. What's m? M stands for the slope. All right? And the slope, it can mean a variety of different things based on what type of problem that you're doing. And here's some of the most common ones that you'll see here is m, the slope, all right, is sometimes referred to as this kind of catchphrase, rise over run, which if you spell out what do they try to mean by rise over run, it's how much does it go up divided by, in the denominator, how much does it go over, and really meaning how much over, how much to the right is what you're really thinking of as far as positives and negatives go. So if it's a regular positive number, it's telling you that you'd go over to the right that far. If you had a negative in either the numerator or the denominator, negative in the numerator would be, okay, going down. A negative in the denominator would be how much to go to the left. And if you had a negative over a negative, it's the same as a positive over positive, because you guys know negative divided by negative is a positive, okay? You'll hear m referred to as the change of y over change of x. Again, the y-axis goes up and down, so it's a change of how much up or down. Change of x, how much left or right. And here's the formula that you'll see. This is subscript 2, 1, and subscript 2, 1. So if you have two coordinates to use, you could actually do the calculation for it. Basically, at the first coordinate, you would call x1 comma y1, because you know they're ordered pairs. And your second coordinate, your second point you had, you called x sub 2 comma y sub 2. You could plug in these numbers into the numerator and these numbers into the denominator down here, do the calculation, and that would indeed be what would be your slope for that line. And that'll come into play a little bit later on. All right, so now you get two different examples here. For the first one, all right, let me kind of go here so we can focus on one at a time. For the first one here, we're saying what's the equation? What is this line's equation right here? So you had to sketch in this line first. I already did it for you. So you sketch in this line, and when the line's given, okay, what's the equation for it? Well, again, begin at B, the y-intercept. So it crosses the y-axis at -2, and that tells me then, as you can see in your notes, if the line crosses at -2, I know the B value is -2. M, you can think of how it moves. How does your M move? Well, the rise is 3, it goes up 3, and the over is it goes over 1. If you look at the points, it goes up 3 to the right 1, up 3 to the right 1, up 3 to the right 1. And you can always backtrack to get the same pattern, because negative divided by a negative would still give you +3. So if I went down 3 and left 1, that's basically -3 divided by -1. And you guys know that a negative divided by a negative is still positive, so it gives us the same +3 slope. So you can backtrack as well. And that leads to our equation that we get, which is y equals 3x minus 2. On the flip side, all right, we can use the same logic not only to identify the equation of a graph, but we can get an equation, be given an equation like we're given here, y equals 1/2 x minus 3. And from that, we can now graph it, saying that I'm going to begin at -3. So the first point I would plot here would be this guy right there, beginning at -3 on the y-axis. All right, and then I'm going to move with my slope up 1 over 2, because the slope is 1 over 2, 1/2. So I go up 1 over 2, make a point. Up 1 over 2, make a point. Up 1 over 2, make a point. And I can backtrack going down 1, left 2, down 1, left 2. And sure enough, that gives me my graph. So I began at -3 on the y-axis, and then I moved up 1 over 2 to get my other points. All right, so that's page 6 notes. Let's go to your, I want you to try page 7 and 8. Is what I'd like you to try after this. And I'll do one of the examples with you. I think the harder ones are to graph. So why don't, I'm going to do number 5 on page 8 with you guys right here. So number 5 on page 8 will be the one we do together, and then I'll let you try the rest. So this one tells me that B is -5, so I'm going to begin at -5, making a point on my y-axis right at -5. That's where I begin at -5. My M is 2. My
Dad.
What?
You're welcome, Dad.
I'm the goat.
Dad.
Thanks, Henry.
You're the goat, Dad.
Thanks. We're almost done with the lesson here. Henry just reminded me that I am the goat. I'm not sure. Did you take the penguin downstairs?
Oh yeah.
That's all right. All right. Thank you, Henry. I'm finishing up my lesson.
Come on.
Sorry about that, guys. And so the last thing here, the slope M is 2. And I can make that a fraction by putting it as 2 over 1. Okay. So that tells me to move up 2 and to the right 1. So I go up 2 to the right 1, up 2 to the right 1, up 2 to the right 1, and I can backtrack by going down 2, left 1. You guys can hear Henry in the background being crazy here. Hopefully it's not too confusing. Sorry about that.
There's a goat behind the chair.
Yeah. Every once in a while, Henry just barges into the room. That happens. So I make my line. And there is y equals 2x minus 5. Alright, sorry for the crazy confusion there, but I'm not going to re-record the 12.5-minute video just because Henry interrupted us for a second. Alright, so try the rest of page 7 and page 8, and I'll check in with you guys tomorrow. Alright, have a good night, day, afternoon. Bye.